All right. Are you ready to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Broom, if you could see if Portia Gregory is in the waiting room. She's been in there for a while, so I'm hoping she's
Yes, I see her.
okay.
Ms. Gregory, can you please start your video?
Hi, Ms. Gregory, can you see us?
Sorry, I'm eating some peanuts. Yes, I can see you.
Can you hear us as well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, Ms. Gregory. I'm going to, Your Honor, did you want me to swear her in? Okay. Ms. Gregory, if you could just raise your right hand.
Hold on.
Sorry. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God today?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. My name is Attorney Johnson Alfred. I am the attorney for the petitioner, Carlton Copeland, in this matter. And we are calling you today as a witness regarding an incident that occurred on November 27th. So before we get into that, could you state your name for the record?
Portia Gregory.
And where do you reside, Ms. Gregory?
In Georgia. Like where in particular or where about?
Yes, what's your address?
Oh.
She doesn't need to give her full address. She can just give area of town, unless there's an objection, because I don't like giving out people's addresses.
Agreed.
No objection.
Okay, thank you.
I'm in Marietta.
Okay. All right. And do you recognize Mr. Copeland?
Yeah.
How do you know him?
We're friends.
How long have you been friends?
Like 2014. Maybe 2013, but I feel like I quit that job.
And do you know Mr. Stewart?
Yeah.
How do you know Mr. Stewart?
He was dating Mr. Copeland.
Okay. Do you recall being around Mr. Stewart and Mr. Copeland on the night of November 27, 2022?
I think so, yeah.
Can you tell us what happened on that night?
Well, yeah, I can tell you. You want me to tell you right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So Craig was having a party, right? That's the night. Yeah. So Craig was having a party. We all went over there. I showed up late because I remember where I was coming from. And then we all left there. And then we went over to Carlton's. And so it was me, Craig, Carlton, Jack, Nan, and the dog. And so there, Craig asked Carlton to go have a private conversation. They went upstairs. I was holding the dog, and then we hear some thudding. So then his grandmother, Nan, was like, okay, go up there and see what's going on. I said, okay, cool. So I was holding the dog at the time, but I put the dog down. And so then upstairs, I knock on the door, and I was like, hey, is everything okay in there? And then I hear Carlton scream, call the police. And so then I open the door, and then Carlton's in a little leg lock. And then Craig's like, I'm about to kill this nigga. And I was like, well, don't do that. And so then I break it up, and then Nan and them come upstairs.
Hold on, Ms. Gregory. All right, when y'all got to Carlton's house, everyone was together at that point?
Yeah, we were all sitting at the table.
Is the table downstairs?
Yeah, at the table downstairs.
All right, and at what point did they leave the table? What was said at that point?
Sitting there for like 7 minutes, because we was all kind of looking at each other. And then we was like, okay, the vibe seemed off. And then they went upstairs, probably like 7 minutes later.
Okay, was anything said before they went upstairs?
No, not there. Oh, well, except, do you want to have this conversation in front of them, or do you want to have it in private? Because it's gonna happen. And I was like, ooh.
Who said that?
Craig said that.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh. I said, well, I don't know nothing about that. So Y'all should probably have that in private.
And at that point, they proceeded to have it in private?
Well, yeah, upstairs.
Okay. And then you stated you heard thudding?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can continue from there.
Well, we heard a "Didn't kill me" then, and then it was the thudding, and then it was me going upstairs after putting the dog down, and so then that's when.
And let me,
open the door.
I want to make sure, I talk fast, so I would want to make sure we understand everything that you're saying. You said, who said "then kill me" then?
It sounded like Carlton said "Didn't kill me" then.
And you heard that from where?
I was downstairs. Remember, I was downstairs holding the dog.
Okay, and that's before you got upstairs.
Right.
Okay.
And so then when I knocked on the door, and then I heard "Call the police," and so then I opened the door because I was like, "Oh, what's going on in here?" And then that's when Craig had Carlton by the hair and the leg lock, and then Carlton was kicking the door. Then he kicked me, but I don't think he remembers that. But then I was like, "Yeah, don't kill him." So then we break him up. That's when his Nan and then Jack run upstairs. And so they got Carlton on one side of the room, we got me on the other with Craig. And I was like, "Craig, you got too much to lose. You got to get out of here." And so then Craig leaves the room and runs down the stairs. So then I'm blocking the stairs, and then Carlton jumps over the banister to run down the stairs. And then there's a vacuum. So Craig picks up the vacuum, and then we hear the banging back and forth. Boom. And then I was like, "Yeah, I'm not about to run down there." Because then Nan was like, "Hey, go down there." I said, "Nan, they got weapons. I'm not running down there." So then after that, we see Carlton getting dragged across the floor again. I was like, "Okay, well, this is a good time to probably run down here." So then we break it up again, and then Craig gets into his car. Well, obviously breaks up, separates, get into his car.
Okay. And at the point when you walk into the room and you say Carlton is in a leg lock, what's the conversation between you and them at that point? Is anyone saying anything, or are they just in a leg lock?
Well, yeah, he was saying "Call the police." Craig is holding on to his hair. I'm about to kill him. And then Carlton's just like screaming, of course. And everybody just gritting their teeth. I mean, there's blood everywhere, glass and stuff. And I tell Craig, I'm like, "You got too much to lose. Get out of here." I'm like, "This is crazy." And I was like, "I broke a nail." I remember saying that.
Okay, you say downstairs. You said you went downstairs when Carlton was being dragged across the floor?
Right. By the hair.
Okay. And at what point did Craig leave?
Right after we broke him up again. Like he
Yeah.
left immediately after that. Yeah.
Okay, did he return to the home?
No, because I got his stuff and took it over there so that way he could have his belongings. Because I was like, "This shit's crazy. Let me get your stuff."
You took his stuff to him at his house?
Right.
Okay. Okay, so and about what time is this all occurring at?
It was PM. What time PM? I don't really remember. It was late.
It was late.
I feel like it was before midnight, but I really don't know.
Okay. And so the next day or any days after that, what contact did you have with Craig?
We spoke on the phone and we texted a little bit, and then he told me something else, and it was just, yeah.
Okay. Can you elaborate on any of the text messages that you were sent from Craig?
He sent me some of the text messages from, I guess, that Carlton has sent people, and then like a video of Carlton, and then just a bunch of stuff to that nature. Just like, "This is who the person that y'all are friends with, who y'all been dealing with. Like, this is who this is."
Okay. And when you say pictures and videos, what kind of videos were those that were sent to you?
The only video that he sent was the video of Carlton with some man.
And when you say
What
with
is it?
me, what do you mean?
It was it was a bunch of butt cheeks. It's mainly what I saw, and they was, I guess, fucking around.
And was that video blocked out, blurred in any way, shape, or form when you received it?
No, I think it was straight from Carlton's phone.
Okay. And what else was sent with the video? You said screenshots or photos?
Yeah, it was a screenshot, I think, from Instagram. was just like Carlton talking about beating up with people and sexual acts that possibly may happen. That's what it was about.
Are you aware of whether or not you're the only person who received those messages?
I don't think I am. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not. But I don't think I was the first stop, if I'm correct.
Did it seem like it was a personal thread between you and Mr. Craig, or more like a blast?
Oh no, that was between me and him.
Okay.
Well, he sent me.
Okay. And have you continued to speak to Craig since this event?
Yeah, I did. But then we haven't really spoken in the past week or two.
Say that one more time for me, Mr. Gregory.
I said we haven't really spoken in the past week or two.
Okay. Do you recall the last conversation you all had?
It was about some text messages that Craig had received from this guy's fiance, saying that Carlton was trying to get them over to do something. That's what it was about the last time.
Do you ever recall Craig stating that it's going to be war between him and Carlton?
No, he didn't say that to me. Yeah, no, he didn't say that to me. I think he said it to somebody else.
Do you recall him stating that Carlton needed to move out of his house?
Craig said that Carlton might want to move because nobody's gonna forget this type of thing. Like everybody knows about this. Everybody's gonna know about this. So you might want to go somewhere else.
Just a second, Sharon. I'm just going over my notes. Okay. I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Davis Madden.
Thank you, Judge. Just briefly. Good afternoon, Ms. Gregory. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. My name is Leah Madden. I represent Mr. Stewart. I just have a couple of follow-up questions for you, okay? I know you indicated when you heard some commotion, I guess that's when you, and I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So it was you, it was Jacqueline, and then also his grandmother in the house.
Right.
Okay. And so when you said you heard some commotion, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but my assumption is that you didn't see the initial altercation, how it started. You came in the midst of it already happening.
Right. I never said I did.
No, I know. I just want to make sure that I clarify and then I understand. And so when you get up there, I think you testified, you said that we tried to break them up. By we, is it you and Jacqueline?
It's everybody. It was a complete clusterfuck. So I was there first, and then his nan, and Jack.
So ma'am, I'm just gonna ask, if you're quoting what someone else said, you are free to say exactly what they said, but since we are formally in court, please refrain from using profanities just out of respect for the process, okay?
Mhm.
Thank you, ma'am. You need to ask your question again, you can.
Okay, thank you, Judge. So when you said everybody, are you referring to you, Jacqueline, and the
Yeah,
grandmother?
people that was there.
Okay.
The three of us.
Okay, and so when you all break things up, at that point, Craig goes downstairs.
Right.
Is that what you recall?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you and Jacqueline, is it fair to say that you were blocking the steps, I guess, to try to prevent Carlton from coming downstairs?
I was. Jack was screaming.
Okay, so you're trying to prevent Carlton from coming downstairs, but some kind of way, I guess he bypasses you, jumps over the railing, and then goes down after Craig at that point.
Right.
And you said that you saw blood everywhere?
No, not everywhere. I guess that was a gross exaggeration. Upstairs, where there was glass up there.
Okay, so I just want to be clear because no one has testified about any blood, and when you said that there was blood everywhere, so you were just exaggerating then.
No, I said there was glass upstairs. So Craig's face was cut up and Carlton was bleeding. That's the blood.
Okay, so Craig's face was cut up.
Yes, from the glass.
And what type of injuries did you observe on Craig's face?
The cuts from the glass. I don't know.
I'm saying where? No, I'm saying where
It
you
was
said
just
to his
kind of
face.
scattered. Just
Okay,
like
so
glass
you did,
too.
okay, observe cuts on his face. So do you know where that came from? The glass? Was it like an actual, like physical glass, like a drinking glass?
No, from the lamp.
And then you said that when Carlton jumps over the banister and he goes after Craig, what did you observe at that time?
Craig
Did
picked
you
up the vacuum.
Okay, he picked up the vacuum cleaner when Carlton was running towards him.
Right.
Okay,
And he said, "What the fuck are you about to do?" That was a quote. And then
Okay.
Craig lifted the vacuum.
okay. So just to be clear, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Carlton jumps over the banister, runs downstairs. Is it fair to say that he's lunging towards Craig? Craig says, "What the fuck are you about to do?" And then that's when he picks up the vacuum cleaner.
I wouldn't say that because Carlton never said that he was going down there to do that. So no, I didn't say that. But he went downstairs.
Okay, well, Carlton didn't say he was going down the stairs to do that, but he moved out of your way, or you were trying to block him from going downstairs. You had told Craig to leave because he had too much to lose to de-escalate the situation, but some kind of way, Carlton still jumps over the railing to go after him.
I mean, we don't know if he's going after him, if that's what you're asking, because if somebody was in my house and I'm like, okay, they just beat me up. People need to get out of here. I'm going downstairs, get out, shut the door. I mean, that really just depends. I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to get from me.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, any redirect?
Just a brief redirect, Your Honor. So from where you were upstairs, Ms. Gregory, were you able to observe the beginning of the incident that happened downstairs by the kitchenette?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So you were able to see that yourself.
Right.
You weren't able to see the incident that occurred upstairs.
No.
So you can't attest to who started that incident upstairs.
I cannot to upstairs, right?
But downstairs, could you attest to who threw the first punch down there? Who initiated that contact?
I guess with the vacuum, that would be Craig.
Okay. And when you observed Carlton jump the banister, just to reiterate, did you see him run towards Craig? Can you explain?
He ran down the stairs, so I guess in Craig's direction, yeah.
Okay. Was it at Craig? Would you deem it aggressive?
I don't know. I just feel like if people are fighting, I mean, everything's aggressive at this point.
No further questions. Thank you, Ms. Gregory.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
All right, do you have any other witnesses, Ms. Johnson Alford?
No, Your Honor.
All righty. All right, so you're resting. At this point, Ms. Davis Madden, do you have any evidence you wish to present?
Yes, Judge. I would call Jacqueline Grubbs at this time. I believe she may be I don't know if she's in the waiting area.
All right, we'll bring her in. Hopefully she is there. And Ms. Gregory, may she be excused?
Okay. Yes, if we could excuse Ms. Gregory. Thank you so much for waiting.
Right. All right, Ms. Gregory, you are excused. You may log off. There we go. All right, and then Ms. Davis Madden, you may swear your witness.
Ms. Grubbs, can you see me?
Yes,
Good afternoon. This is Attorney Leah Madden. How are you?
I'm well.
Thank you. I see you have your right hand raised. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony that you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, you can lower your hand. If you would just state, and I know you have your information on the screen, but if you could just state and spell your full name for the record.
Uh, Jacqueline Grubbs, JACQUELINE. Last name Grubbs, GRUBBS.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Grubbs. And do you know the respondent in this case, Craig Stewart?
Yes.
Okay, and if you would, just very briefly, how do you know him?
We're friends. We met through a mutual friend a few years ago and became good friends.
Okay, and do you know the petitioner in this case, Carlton Copeland?
Yes.
Okay, and what is the nature of your relationship with Mr. Copeland?
I've met Carlton through Craig. They were in a relationship. I met him as his partner, and we were friends too.
Okay, I want to bring your attention to an incident that occurred sometime on the night of November the 22nd of last year. Do you recall being at Mr. Stewart's house that night?
Yes.
Okay, and then do you later recall going from Mr. Stewart's house over to Mr. Copeland's house?
Yes.
Okay, if you would just tell us what you recall from that night, and I want to focus specifically on the time when you went to Mr. Copeland's house. And before you get into that, just tell me who was in the home from what you recall.
Who was in Mr. Copeland's
Mr.
house?
Copeland's home, yes.
Myself, Portia, Craig, Carlton, and Carlton's grandmother, Nan.
Okay, and if you would tell me what you recall from that night.
I recall the four of us sitting at Carlton's dining room table. I know Portia and I had a cocktail. I believe Carlton got a cocktail when he came in the door, because that was our purpose really for going over there. And Nan was walking around with the dogs. Nan came in, I think, to go out to the patio and smoke. The four of us were sitting at Carlton's dining room table. Craig was in his phone, very preoccupied. We were all talking or trying to talk. And Carlton was engaging with Portia and I. He was engaging with Craig a little bit, but Craig was just not up for conversation. Craig was biting his nails. He was in his phone. I said a couple things to him. He was real short. If anybody said anything to him, he was very short in his answers. Then Craig stood up from the table and said to Carlton, "I need to talk to you. Do you want me to do it here or something to the effect, or go somewhere else or upstairs?" So they went upstairs. Then Portia and I were sitting at the table, continuing to talk. Nan was doing whatever with the dogs. And then we heard some commotion. I think Nan heard it first, and she brought it to our attention with a scream or something. And she's like, "Go up there." So Portia and I went up there. I think Portia was in front of me. We got up. I remember us getting to the top of the stairs, and Craig and Carlton were arguing. They were in each other's face, arguing, shouting. It was just very loud. They were very close on each other. So Portia and I both went into the room to separate the two of them. We did that. They were still talking. I don't recall exactly what they were saying, but we separated them. I got Carlton over to a sofa on the far side of the room to keep them apart. And I remember sitting on Carlton just to keep them apart.
Okay, let me stop you for just a second, Ms. Grubbs. Okay. When you said you came in the room, so it was your recollection that it was a bunch of arguing and they were in each other's faces?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that you went to separate the two of them, or you and Portia went to separate the two of them?
Yes.
Okay, and then you said that Carlton was on the sofa.
Yeah, I more or less probably pushed him or, just really forced him over to the sofa, just to
And when
keep
you
him.
say the sofa, I'm sorry to cut you off. Was there a sofa in the bedroom?
Yeah, there's a sofa or a chair there. He was sitting on it and I was sitting on him. So it's a small sofa, love seat, chair. It was something big enough to hold he and I.
Okay. And you said that you were sitting on him. Why did you feel the need to sit on Mr. Copeland?
Because he resisted the separation, like us pulling them apart. So I wanted them apart because they were arguing. They were, it was just a lot of shouting about something in the phone and somebody cheating. So I wanted them to be separated so nothing would happen because we heard the noise. I don't know what the noise was. Don't know if something fell, if they were fighting or whatever, but Dan heard the noise and then like I heard the bump, but then she shouted, should I go up there and get him? So I just, wanted them to be separated so that Craig could leave. If I figured if I was sitting on Carlton, they would have no interaction. And Craig was closest to the door, seems like, so he could go on out the door, go down the stairs and leave. And I wanted to keep.
I'm sorry. So when you said you were sitting on Carlton, did Craig leave at that time?
I think he did. I think Portia convinced him to go out of the room. And she was also ushering him out of the room, pushing him out of the room, for him to go home, or to leave. And so I do recall him leaving out of the room. I mean, he was shouting, he had things to say, but Portia did manage to get him out and down the stairs. And so I remember that happening. And then she was at the stairs. So I think probably I got off of Carlton's lap when I realized Craig should have been down the stairs. And so I remember being behind Portia and then Carlton coming behind me. And we were both blocking the stairway to keep Carlton upstairs.
And just to be clear,
separated.
when you say we were blocking the I guess the hallway or the stairway rather, you're
Yes.
referring to you and Portia.
Yes, Portia and I, she was in front of me. And I was behind her. I know I had my arms out. She may have had hers out. I don't remember, but it's the way the stairs are made. I know one side is a wall and the other side is like a banister or a square or something. So it was enough where we could block, put our hands there in an attempt to keep the two of them apart so nothing would happen. So I don't know. I can't remember if Carlton stayed on the couch when I got up. Obviously, I guess he didn't, because the next thing I know, he came from behind me. He probably was, I think he was trying to get through us to walk down the stairs and he couldn't. So he went around me, behind me, and leaped over. It's like a banister. He leaped over the banister to get down the stairs to Craig. So I remember him leaping over the banister, and then I don't know if he fell, if he stumbled. I know he didn't stand straight up, so he probably fell a little bit and got up and then went down the stairs after Craig.
Okay, and when you say that he leaped over the banister, did he have to like push you or push Portia out of the way? Like, how was he able to get around you?
There's actually enough space to the left, to my left, like we just had our hands out. I guess we just didn't calculate it right, but there was just enough space for him to, we just thought he would walk down the stairs, I guess, but he outsmarted us pretty much. There was enough space for him to kind of put his hand over and leap over that. And it's like I say, if you imagine yourself jumping a hurdle, if you were to hold on to that hurdle and leap over, that's what he did.
Okay, and if you could describe Carlton's demeanor at that time, did he seem fearful or did he seem aggressive? Like, how did he seem?
Well, he was aggressive. He leaped over that banister like Superman, kind of, sort of. But he leaped over the banister to go after Craig. So he was pretty upset. Yeah, and he was aggressive. Um, he wasn't calm to leap over the banister. I mean, that it's not something easy to do. It takes a lot of strength, stamina. He's well in shape. So um, yeah, he leaped like I'm imagining like somebody in the Olympics or something when they have to leap over a hurdle. That's what comes to mind.
Okay, and so you describe him as being aggressive at that time. Did you observe what happened once he made it over the banister downstairs?
Once he got to the bottom, because he didn't land on the floor, he landed on the stairs, but not straight up. So he could have stumbled, whatever, but he did get up and go down the stairs. At that point, I couldn't see him because there is a wall there, and Craig was on the other side, the right side of that partition or that wall downstairs. Was hoping he was out the door, because when Carlton leaped over, it stunned me. Portia was in front of me, and then, I mean, it just kind of shocked myself. I think both of us. But when he got to the bottom of the stairs, he went to the right after Craig. At that point, I could not see him.
Okay, and I know you said you couldn't see. Could you hear anything? Were you able to make out anything anyone was saying?
Not any words specifically, because Nan was screaming, they were screaming, Portia and I was, Craig and Carlton was screaming at each other. Portia and I were screaming, like, don't stop. So I don't recall any specific words being said. I only remember that I was trying to get past Portia and get down the stairs. She went down the stairs. We both went down the stairs. And at that point, I was telling Craig to get out, telling Carlton to stay in the house or go to the other side. I don't remember where Nan was at that time. I remember, when I got downstairs, I remember Craig was saying he needed his stuff, some of his things, and I was basically pushing him out of the door, just telling him to get out, go home, go home, go home. This is not necessary. I don't know what happened. Pretty much at that point, there was something, something was broken, because I remember, I don't remember if I fell when I came down the stairs, but there was something like in my knee, like it felt like it was a splinter or something in my knee, in my right knee, which I noticed later. But I remember grabbing my shoes, because I didn't have my shoes on. They were at the front door. I don't remember if I had a purse that night. I probably did. And grabbing my stuff, but just making sure that Craig was outside, hopefully in his vehicle, and going home, because his parents were here and they had to leave early. So I wanted him to just get out, just go home, just for them to be separated.
Okay. And let me ask you this. Did you observe any marks, any bruises, anything on Carlton?
Not at that time, no.
Okay. And what about on Craig? Did you observe any marks or scratches or bruises or anything on Craig?
Yes, later I did.
Okay. And when you say later, how later?
As soon as we left Carlton's house and came back to Craig's house, and because it was dark outside. It might have been like 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. Did notice him at the house because it was too much at Carlton's house. There was too much going on. But once we got back to Craig's residence, and he came inside, I could see the marks on his face and his hand.
Okay. And you said you saw marks on his face. Could you just describe them? Were they scratches? Did it look like bruising?
There's a lot of scratches. Some of them deep than others, scratches or welts. Some could have been bruises. It was a lot. They were like everywhere. And I think he had some things on his hand, something on his ear, his eye was swollen. Myself and his aunt, we got things, like peroxide and ice to just try to soothe those things, to try to patch him up so it wouldn't be so noticeable to his parents when they got up that morning.
Did you help document any of the injuries that Craig sustained?
I did.
Okay, so there were photographs that were taken. You documented his injuries with those photographs?
Yes.
Okay. I like to show you, and Judge, I didn't submit these either. I'm in a similar posture as Attorney Johnson Alford, where I was retained late, but I believe my client, pro se, submitted some photographs. I'm not sure how they're numbered.
I'm not showing anything from the respondent. When was this? Did he do it today?
Mr. Stewart, can you speak to that? I know you said you submitted some photographs.
Yes, I emailed those things over on, it was Tuesday night, because it had to be within no later than 24 hours. And I emailed it to the email address that's on that form.
Let me check. I don't see anything here, but I will check and get back with you, Judge.
And I put the case number in the subject.
Let's just give Ms. Brim 1 second to see if she sees any submission.
And if not, Judge, I do have them, but I know they have to be submitted through the clerk.
Well, if they've already been
Okay.
shared with the other side, you should be able to email them possibly to Ms. Broom.
There's some pictures of a face.
Yes.
With
That's
stars.
it.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Hold on one moment.
All right, just give her a moment to get those.
Can you see this?
Okay, yes, I can see them. And I'm just gonna ask if you would just look at these photos and tell me if you recognize these photos, Ms. Gregory. I'm sorry, not Ms. Gregory. I'm thinking about Portia. Ms. Groves.
Say that again.
Do you recognize these photographs?
I do.
Okay, and who is depicted in the photographs?
Craig Stewart.
Okay, and is this how Mr. Stewart looked on the night that we've just been discussing?
Yes.
And are these photographs fair and accurate depictions of the injuries that he sustained and that you documented?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to tender, and I'm sorry, I don't know how many there are. I know they're being scrolled. These pictures as respondents, evidence. And again, I think it's 6 of them, maybe?
Are these all in one, Madam Clerk?
This is just one with a case number.
So let's just call
Okay.
this, we can call them defense exhibits 1, and then you can maybe do A, B, C, or D as you go through them. Any objection, Ms. Johnson offered?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, so defendants exhibit 1, which is these photographs, are admitted without objection.
Okay, and if you could describe for us in a little bit more detail what's depicted in the photographs.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am. I'm so sorry. Yes,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking to you. We'll start with the first one.
Okay, let's see. You're wanting me to describe the gash or scratch over his eye?
Yes,
And then there is a bruise or mark on the side of his nose. That's the same thing that I can see in that photo. This is the other side of his face. There is a scratch or welt, and then there's his eye is bloodshot or bruised, I guess I would say. Um, I know there was something on his ear on one, but yeah, there is some. Let's see. I think there's something lower that I could see on the right side of his face. You can see both sides. There's something on his lip. Yeah, that's the lower mark that I was referring to a minute ago, closer to his beard. And that's just an upshot where it shows his eye, um, the welts, scratches over both eyebrows, on the eye, the nose, and the side of his face. Again,
And these just look like different
yeah.
angles of the same thing. Okay. That's all that I have about these pictures. Just a few more questions. Okay. So when you said you heard some commotion, so is it fair to say you weren't able to actually determine how the altercation started?
No. Portia and I were talking. There was some music playing. The dogs are running around. I think I heard Nan more so than I heard the commotion upstairs, because she more or less brought it to my attention with her scream. I almost didn't hear it if she had not come to us and reinforced that there was a commotion. It may have taken a while for me to even know anything was going on.
Okay. And when you did make it upstairs, were you able to make a determination about who was the aggressor in the situation?
No, they both were yelling, cussing, both were upset. I think the only thing I can remember, remember Craig saying that Carlton cheated and he's been fucking around, and he had some pictures in his phone where he's been sending photos of himself to strangers. That's what I remember hearing that. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if Carlton had a response. I just don't remember what it was. I mean, he was saying something, but at that point, I was just trying to help keep them apart.
Okay. And at that point, did Carlton seem in fear of his safety when you were trying to, I guess, sit on him on the sofa?
No, Carlton's pretty strong. He probably could have flung me off of him at any moment. I don't know if he was just, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of heavy, so I could have been keeping him down, or he could have just, been accommodating. But he was not, like trying to throw me off or anything like that. Maybe out of respect because I was a female, older. I don't know, but or maybe he was thinking. I'm not sure, but he wasn't aggressive at the point that I was sitting on him. Not really to where I felt worried or felt that he feared for his life. He was pretty calm then, and he certainly didn't seem like he feared for his life when he leaped over the stairs. I mean, that was literally shocking to me. But that's his house. He knows his house. So he saw a way to get down the stairs, and that was his way around the both of us, is to leap over that banister and head it down those stairs.
Okay. All right. I believe that's all that I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, hold on.
You have to wait.
All right. So the other attorney gets to ask you some questions. All right.
Okay.
Ms. Johnson-Alford, you may cross.
Thank you. Hi, Ms. Grubbs.
Hi.
My name is Attorney Johnson Alfred. I am the attorney for Mr. Copeland. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions.
Okay,
So when you initially heard the sound upstairs, you went up there, correct?
correct. Well, not initially, but when Nan had asked us to go up there.
Okay. And it's your testimony that you saw them arguing?
Yes,
Okay. So describe that scene for us at that moment. They were what, face to face, or how did that look for you?
they were face to face. They were in each other's face. Close enough to where I felt like it involved to pull them apart because the shouting was so loud, they needed to be separated.
Okay. Did you observe anyone hit anyone?
Not at that time, no,
Okay. Were you the first person into the room?
no.
Okay. And you said that Craig left the room at one point.
Yes.
Did you think at that point he was also leaving the house?
I don't know. I know he went downstairs. I couldn't see what he was doing. The only thing would have been to do is because I was asking him, I think, I don't remember exactly what Portia was saying. She may have been saying the same thing. I believe she was, but I was telling him to get out and go home. His parents were at his house. So if he went downstairs, I assumed that he was going to go out the door and go home.
Okay. And your testimony was that Portia was pushing him out of the room?
Yeah, she was making sure that he left the room. And, you know, pushing him, guarding him so that to keep him away from Carlton and keep Carlton, and I'm keeping Carlton away from him. So to make sure that he left and went down the stairs, and he did.
Okay. Did he seem like he wanted to leave, or was he trying to stay in the room?
He wasn't trying to stay in the room. I mean, Craig is pretty strong. I believe if he wanted to stay, he could have flung Portia over to the side, stayed in the room. But he went on down the stairs. He went down the stairs to get out of the room.
Okay. And you stated that you were unable to see, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You were unable to see on the other side of the wall, I'm guessing from where you were standing. Were you standing at the top of the stairs?
Yes.
Okay. But you were unable to see the confrontation that happened downstairs from where you were standing?
Correct.
Okay. Did you at all see Carlton being dragged on the ground by Craig?
No.
Okay.
No.
So at what point did you get downstairs? What point was the confrontation at when you arrived at the end of the stairs, at the bottom of the stairs?
When I got down the stairs, Craig was near the living room, just towards the front of the house. Carlton was maybe in the kitchen or going towards the back of the house. I don't know if he was literally in the kitchen or if he had passed me and went past the stairs, which he had came down. I don't remember that because I was trying to get out of there as well.
Did you observe any injuries at that point on anyone?
Not at that point.
And just to clarify, when you said that when you were sitting on Carlton to prevent him from getting up, he wasn't trying to do so? He wasn't resisting you?
No, not that I recall. Not nothing aggressive or violent. You know, he sat there while I was sitting on him, I think until I got up.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect? Any redirect, Ms. Davis-Madden?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was still on mute. No, Your Honor. Nothing more of this witness.
All right, may this witness be excused?
Yes, I don't have anything else on behalf of the respondent.
All right, Ms. Johnson-Alford, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, ma'am, you're excused. You may log off.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do you have any other witnesses, Ms. Davis-Madden?
Judge, and I know it's getting very late in the day. If I could just have the court's indulgence, I just would like to speak to my client briefly. We talked about the possibility of him testifying. I don't know that he needs to, but there is a pending warrant application hearing. So I just want to make sure he understands that if he does elect
Yes.
to.
And let me just make sure. So, sir, your attorney indicates that she has gone over this with you, but is going to again. And what I would like to make sure you understand is that if there are any pending criminal matters and investigations in the future, anything you say in this hearing, even if you think it's helping yourself, could, depending on how things play out down the road, still possibly be used against you. And you can bet if there is a criminal hearing or criminal actions that the state will use anything they can against you. And so I'm going to let you speak in the breakout room with your attorney to discuss whether you want to testify or not. Okay. So we'll place y'all in the breakout room.
Thank you, Judge.
And the rest of us will be in recess for about 5 minutes. All right, if we have everybody back and you can turn on your videos. Thank you. All right, Ms. Davis-Madden, do you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, we're going to rest at this time.
Okay, all right. So at this point, unless you have any other rebuttal witnesses you would like to present, Ms. Johnson-Alford, we may go into closing.
No further witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay, so Ms. Johnson-Alford, you have the option to open and then close, or waive opening and just reserve close. What would you like to do?
I will waive open and reserve.
Okay, thank you. So Ms. Davis-Madden, I will hear from you.
Yes, Your Honor. I think what's not in dispute is that there was some type of altercation that occurred on the night in question. Unfortunately, we don't have any independent witnesses outside of the respondent and the petitioner as to how the altercation started. But what we do see is injuries, and I would argue that the brunt of the injuries were actually sustained by my client. I think what this is rooted in, quite honestly, is just embarrassment on the part of the petitioner. As he's indicated, he was upset about pictures and video, photographs being shown to family members and mutual friends. They have a circle of friends, a lot of mutual friends, and I think that was one of the things that he was upset about. Judge, I'm not going to argue that there was nothing here to indicate, again, that an altercation happened, but I think when you look at the second prong, whether or not there's a likelihood that any violence will occur in the future, I frankly don't feel like the petitioner has met their burden. My client has not had contact with him either through email, through text message, through telephone call. He has not gone by his house. In fact, I believe that we heard acknowledgement and testimony from Mr. Copeland that his mother, in fact, has reached out to my client several times, that he's also talked to a mutual friend, or actually is more of a friend of my client, and a gentleman by the name of Scott. My client has no desire to have any contact with Mr. Copeland. I don't think they've had any contact since this incident occurred, which was unfortunate. But I think we've not heard any other testimony that there has been any prior violence between the parties. The only other violent outburst occurred with Mr. Copeland when he was drinking and testified to, I guess, having an incident where he had damaged some of his own property. But with respect to this particular incident, Judge, I think it's a little bit disingenuous for Mr. Copeland to say he was in fear for his safety. We've heard testimony from two independent witnesses say that once the situation was de-escalated, they came up, they broke the two gentlemen apart. My client basically went down the stairs, was heading out the door. And then Mr. Copeland, he said that he just wanted to talk to my client, but we've heard testimony, and I believe it was very credible, from Miss Jacqueline Grubbs, basically saying that he was very aggressive, that he jumped over the railing, bypassed her to get down to Mr. Copeland. And we heard testimony from Mr. Copeland, as well as from Portia Gregory, that my client said, "What the F are you about to do?" And Judge, I would argue that when he said that, my client was in fear of his safety, that here Mr. Copeland was coming and rushing towards him, and he's saying, "What are you about to do?" And he might have grabbed the vacuum cleaner to act in self-defense. I think this was essentially a situation of mutual combat. The injury that Mr. Copeland showed looked like one, I couldn't tell. I don't know if it was supposed to be a bruise or a mark on his head. You know, he claimed that my client was hitting and slapping and punching him and doing all of this, yet there were no visible injuries whatsoever to his face, to his eyes, to his mouth, to his nose, to anything. It was supposedly something, I guess, in his hair. And then he showed a picture of his toe where it was fractured, but he indicated he did that himself, either when he was kicking the door, or I would submit maybe when he was doing the Superman jump, as was described by Ms. Grubbs, over the railing. I just don't think the burden has been met to show that, again, that there is any reason to think that there would be any continued violence between the parties. They have no property together. They don't have any children together. They're not married. They never lived together. It sounds like all of the belongings that my client have since been returned to him. And so, Judge, I would just ask that the court not enter into a permanent protective order in this case.
All right, thank you. Ms. Johnson-Alford?
Yes, Your Honor. I would agree with Ms. Davis-Madden in stating that I think we are all on the same page with the first prong being satisfied that there was a violent act that occurred here. Yes, Mr. Copeland and Mr. Stewart were the only two people in that room who can attest to how that happened. But what we can attest to is the lead up to it. We can attest to the fact that everyone agrees that Mr. Stewart was angry. It's a word that we've heard all day today in this hearing, is he was angry. This began at his home, where he had knowledge of all of this information before he even went to Mr. Copeland's house. He could have chosen just not to go, but he carried this over to Mr. Copeland's house. Mr. Copeland had no idea or no reason to believe nothing like this had ever happened before. So he had no reason to believe that him going upstairs to have a conversation with Mr. Stewart was going to end in him being in the floor in a leg lock. If they'd never had any prior violent contact, then that's not even something that would have been on his radar. So the actions that happened after that make more sense. It makes more sense that he can't explain why he jumped over the railing. He can't explain the adrenaline that he was feeling at that moment in a situation that he'd never been in before. He'd never been in a fight, let alone been in a fight with someone he was in love with and someone he had been with for years. So at that point in that room, no one is debating the fact that he was in a leg lock. No one's debating the fact that he was yelled at, he was being threatened. As we heard Miss Gregory come and testify that Mr. Stewart said out of his mouth that he was going to kill him. She ran upstairs when she heard what she perceived to be Mr. Copeland's voice say, "Kill me then." So these are threats that are being thrown. I'm not understanding why it's far-fetched to understand that Mr. Copeland was in fear for his life when he was being held in a leg lock after Mr. Stewart was telling him he was going to kill him. So I absolutely think that the element of being in fear for his safety was there. This had never happened before. He's in his home, he's enjoying a night with his friends, and this situation arises. He didn't have any way to have known that Mr. Stewart had that knowledge of what was in his phone all the way back hours ago at an earlier party at Mr. Stewart's home. So Mr. Copeland was basically walking into the situation in the dark. And it makes sense that you wouldn't have seen as many injuries on Mr. Copeland as what he stated. He was in a leg lock. I don't know what injuries we could have expected from that. He's not gonna maybe have the scratches and the cuts, and it makes sense for him to have defensive wounds on Mr. Stewart from Mr. Copeland trying to get out of that leg lock. It makes sense that he's trying to alert the people downstairs for help by kicking the door. It's not a self-inflicted wound. It's him defending himself, trying to get help. He's not screaming, I'm going to kill this man. He's not screaming, I'm going to harm Mr. Stewart. He's not screaming, come get him. He's screaming, call the police, help. And he gets that help. And when they're separated, as you heard from Ms. Grubbs' testimony, he's not trying to reinitiate. He's not trying to go after Mr. Stewart in that moment. He's sitting on the couch. Ms. Grubbs is sitting on top of him and he's sitting there. He's not trying to start this fight back up. Even in him going downstairs, as you heard Ms. Gregory testify, put it in the sense of someone being in your house and you being attacked. You do want to secure your home. You want to make sure his grandmother's there. You want to make sure everybody in that home is safe and secure. But that still does not mean you go downstairs and someone who you perceive to have left the home is in your kitchen. And he's grabbing the closest thing to him, obviously, which is a vacuum cleaner, and he's beating you with it. No one here has disputed the fact that Mr. Stewart picked up a vacuum cleaner and proceeded to hit Mr. Copeland with it. Even if we have no one else in the room upstairs where the fight began, we have multiple witnesses at this point saying that downstairs, Mr. Stewart initiated this fight. He was the primary aggressor down there. And from that, we also have testimony stating that Mr. Copeland was being dragged across the floor. Granted, Ms. Grubbs was not able to see that from her purview. It seems like Ms. Grubbs was always just second in line to all the events. She was just barely missing it. She was getting there after Portia, after things had already been separated. So I view her testimony in that fashion. But one thing that is a standing theme here today is that Mr. Stewart was angry. He was angry before we got to Mr. Copeland's house. He was angry at Mr. Copeland's house. He continued to be angry after the situation by even trying to further harm Mr. Copeland by sending out these pictures and videos, by making sure everyone knew what happened, by further embarrassing him. So the harm and the violence didn't stop just in that night before the police got there. This has continued. And Mr. Copeland continues to have to fight, I guess, digitally, based on all these texts and DMs that he's still getting, based on Mr. Craig still, I guess, putting it on YouTube and based on him being an influencer. We did not get to go into that, but one thing that we still hold true is that he's continued to be angry. He's going to be angry. He doesn't show that he's not going to continue to try to reach out to Mr. Copeland. We have testimony that he has used third-party communicators to try to get to Mr. Copeland, even if he's not reaching out directly. And for that reason, I feel like that satisfies the second prong of the likelihood of violence in the future. Even if he's not going to get to Mr. Copeland directly, he's still going to use every outlet, every possible outlet to get to him through other people, even if it's mutual friends and family or social media. So at this point, we are asking today that you extend the protective order. If everything that Mr. Stewart is saying is true, then there's no reason why we wouldn't extend it. So we are asking for that 12-month protective order here today, Your Honor.
Okay. I'll tell y'all where I'm at from listening to everything. I did not hear testimony that the respondent told someone to tell him something about coming. I know that they're talking about friends and saying, I would really like to do this. From the testimony I heard, there was an altercation. There may have been an act or multiple acts of violence at that single incident. That incident, there is some question as to throughout the incident and who the predominant aggressor was. But even if I find that, then I have to look at the reasonable likelihood of future acts of violence. One thing I will note, I did hear testimony about transmission of explicit videos and pictures. Without consent, that could be a misdemeanor. Now, under the statute, it is not an act of dating violence, but that is a question of concern for the court. But again, it's around that incident. I did not hear ongoing, and as for the DMs and such, there's no evidence those were actually the respondent, although it could be his followers. I heard no evidence that he was telling people to do this. So I can only go off the evidence that is before the court today. And while there may be some crimes out there, this session does not affect anything in any other criminal case proceeding or otherwise. I just have to see if there has been an act of dating violence, which is defined by the statute, and then if by preponderance of the evidence, there is a reasonable likelihood of future acts of dating violence. And that is where I am finding that there has not been sufficient evidence. And I'll tell you why. Just generally, the parties do not reside together. They don't have any children together. There's no shared property, and there's no other shared assets. Additionally, when asked about the likelihood of future violence, there was some hesitancy on the answer on the behalf of the petitioner. And so I don't find that there is a reasonable likelihood of acts of future violence. That doesn't mean if there's ongoing issues, the petitioner cannot refile. And that doesn't have any effect on what may or may not happen with the criminal case. But at this time, with the evidence I've heard today, I'm going to have to dismiss the petition based on a lack of evidence of likelihood of future acts of dating violence. Okay, so I appreciate everyone's being here and everyone's time. And that will resolve this case before this court. So you are all excused.